No, I hear you. You just can't be pleased, man. I got you.
That's pretty much what it is. Everybody should understand that I can't like movies.
Welcome to SinCast, presented by Cinemasins.
All right, everybody, welcome to the SinCast. This is Chris Atkinson from Cinemasins, joined by Jonathan Watkins from Cinemasins.
Hello, hello.
Today, we're going to be doing a mini-pod.
Bloody pod?
Sure, that works. Works perfectly.
But not Bloodshot. Not Bloodshot.
No, it's not Bloodshot. We're doing a mini-pod of The Five Bloods, directed by Spike Lee, and on Netflix. It came on. Was it June 12th? Is that what it was? June 12th?
That is correct.
Spike Lee's new one on Netflix. What do we want to say about this? It's about a bunch of Vietnam vets who are coming back to Vietnam to find some gold that they buried and left behind because they couldn't take it out of the country at the time. And now it's been 50 years later, and they're or however long it is, 40 years later, maybe. And they want to find a way to get the gold and get back. And they also have a friend who died that they want to get his remains and send them back as well. And this is a sort of an eclectic cast because there's some people I don't think I've ever seen. I would have never guessed a movie with Delroy Lindo and Isaiah Whitlock as Vietnam vets like that.
Yeah.
Like this, very strange. But Isaiah Whitlock is best known from The Wire, and Clark Peters, also known from The Wire, is in this. And rounding out the main four guys, you have Norm Lewis playing one of them, and then Delroy Lindo's son is played by Jonathan Majors.
Yeah, Jonathan Majors, who I know he's been in some stuff. I had never seen him in anything because I hadn't seen like The Black Man from San Francisco or The Last Black Man. Is that what it is?
Yeah, it's The Last Black Man in San Francisco.
In San Francisco, which I really do want to see now. I've always wanted to see it. I just hadn't had a chance. But he's excellent. I don't think I had ever seen Norm Lewis. Looked really familiar, but like I looked up his bibliography, and like he was in a couple of Spike Lee things I hadn't seen. That She's Gotta Have It TV show. And but I guess I hadn't seen him in anything, but he looked super familiar. But
same here. I thought he was like somebody I had seen 100 times, but he's only got 29. He's only got 29 acting credits.
Yeah.
Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. He was in an episode of that.
Oh, okay.
What else is there on here that I mean, he was in Gotham as Deputy Mayor Harrison Kane.
Oh, maybe
for
I saw
one
him
episode.
Maybe like the 10 episodes I watched, that was one of them.
Yeah, maybe so. I mean, there's not very many things here that I can point to and say, yeah, I've seen that. But yeah, he rounds out that older crew.
You talked about them being in a Vietnam movie, but like going into this, I kind of assumed it was one thing because I didn't know much about it going in, other than I knew they played Vietnam vets going back to Vietnam. And then it starts off kind of what I thought it would be, like a reflection piece almost, because Spike Lee has done a few of these. But then it turns into something I've never seen Spike Lee do before. I mean, it turns into, a lot of people have said like Treasure of the Sierra Madre, or even something like Wages of Fear or Sorcerer. Yeah. Like it basically becomes like a jungle suspense thriller adventure movie, which I was not expecting. And I mean, I won't even beat around the bush. I mean, this movie's fucking great.
Okay. I was going to add to the movies that it reminds me of, and Three Kings. Also,
definitely.
Came up in my head during this whole thing. This is an exciting movie. It's a 2.5 hour movie, and Spike Lee has a lot of other things on his mind in this as well that you don't. At least I don't think people like us, like white guys, think about very often when it comes to the Vietnam War and everything. And, Spike Lee has this theme running throughout where, black men in America aren't being treated very well at all, but we're being sent to the front lines out in Vietnam to fight for something that they didn't have back home. Um, I don't. I love that message, and I wonder though. I was wondering throughout this, was it like an appropriate message for the movie he made?
Oh, that's interesting.
It was like one of those things where you're like, yeah, I can get with that. It's just that the movie he made here just didn't seem like it fit that much. It felt like it was kind of like it just didn't fit for me as neatly as I think he wanted it to.
Yeah, this is definitely like because I mean, I guess people do know this. If you've seen enough of his movies, maybe you see all the touches and stuff. I mean, Spike Lee's a huge film buff. Like he's a big film guy. I can even remember back in the day of like when it was like Laserdisc was the main thing and stuff. I remember reading an article with him where he was talking about, I don't rent, like I just buy. And he was talking about his movie collection and stuff. I mean, he's like Scorsese and, that crew just with how many films they watch. So you get like the film fan of Spike Lee in this movie, definitely, because like I said, I mean, that Treasure Sierra Madre thing, I mean, clearly he's a fan of that movie.
Very much so. And he even very directly references it.
Absolutely. And you deal with the whole, like when they're going back for the gold, they kind of get into the whole gold fever and, all that kind of stuff, like how that changes people's perspectives and all that kind of stuff. Not to get too much into that. We'll talk about that in spoilers. Yeah. But then also, like you said, it's definitely also a think piece at times, which he also likes to do. And I mean, I guess I could see that maybe not merging as well for some.
Well, here's the thing. I think that message works beautifully in a movie where we see the young guys fighting in Vietnam. And that's the main part of the movie. And they can still have the gold and everything else going on at the same time. I just don't. It may require multiple viewings for me, but I feel like that message works best if we just see all of them young, and the movie is set in 1969 or whatever. And then we have these kind of things, but maybe it does require 40 something years of reflection to get to that point on this. When they're going back to get gold that isn't theirs, it's one of those type of things where I'm like, we're playing a little fast and loose with the ethics and morals of these characters and everything, and I thought it was interesting. I was sitting there going, man, I think I really would like this message if it was just, younger people the entire time.
Yeah, because I mean, it gets to the point where you're like, you kind of start wondering, like, because at the beginning, you're definitely like, oh, these are good guys, and they're, they're going back, and you don't know exactly what they're going back for initially either. I mean, we should say, I mean, it's not, I mean, they don't hide it, like it's in the trailers and everything. So we're not spoiling anything, but
no.
But by the end, you do wonder, like, were they even really good people?
Yeah. I mean, it's I don't have a problem. I don't have a problem with them being bad people. I just thought it was kind of a weird framing device that they, they decided to make it where it's kind of like, a lot of these, it starts off kind of like a lot of these old man movies where they're getting the band back together again, and they're gonna have crazy moments and everything. Those movies that you see Morgan Freeman in all the time. But like it starts off kind of like that, but then it has a lot more to say. But like I said, I don't want to belabor that point. But
absolutely,
it felt like a weird juxtaposition for the kind of movie that we were watching.
Absolutely. And I don't want to come off just saying like they turn into bad guys. That's not what I mean. I definitely didn't mean that. But it's kind of like, I feel like kind of like Zero Effect with Ben Stiller. Like, there's not good guys and bad guys. There's a bunch of guys.
Right.
They're more complex, I guess, the more the movie goes on than you think they were initially. There's actually a really, really interesting thing with the Norm Lewis character. that caught me off guard when we get into spoilers. But but overall, really liked it.
Yeah, and at the center of this is Delroy Lindo being awesome. Delroy Lindo is so great.
Yeah, he at one point says he's the motherfucker, and I was thinking like, he is the motherfucker. God damn it! Like
he really is.
He's awesome, and it seems like people are just kind of seeing him for the first time, at least younger people who haven't, because. But like, I mean, in the 90s and stuff, I mean, starting with like Get Shorty and Crooklyn and all that stuff. I mean, I was just like, yeah, this guy's awesome.
Oh, and,
it was nice to see him back doing something a little more, prominent.
Yeah. So what are we going to grade this?
I'm going to give it an A. It does feel like two movies at sometimes, but for whatever reason, they both worked fine for me. I'm sure there's moments where, and I've felt this way with multiple Spike Lee films, as much as I love, even the ones I just love the most. There seems to always be scenes that go on a little longer than I probably would have them go on.
Right.
But in the grand scheme of things, I mean, it doesn't matter. I mean, like I said, I was so surprised. Like, I've never seen. I mean, he did Inside Man, which is very much a suspense thriller, but this really felt like he was doing like almost like Hitchcock levels. I mean, there was just some really suspenseful stuff towards the end because you weren't sure like who was going to do what, how they were going to act. Was someone about to turn on somebody? There's other characters that show up. We haven't even talked about what's the from Melanie Thierry and Paul Walter Hauser.
Yeah, and the name that I will never probably get right, Jasper Pakkanen.
Yes,
who is also in Black Klansman.
Oh yes, that's
Paul
right.
Walter Hauser. Yeah.
And just all this stuff just kind of converges towards the end, and things start getting like even shittier and shittier for these people, and they have more hoops to jump through, and it just kind of everything builds on everything so nicely. That it was a lot of fun to watch him work in that kind of area.
Yeah.
I'll give it an A.
Yeah, I'm gonna give this a solid B. I feel like if he goes one way or the other, like he could make two movies out of the material that's in this. And I think both of those movies are probably A's, but when you put them together, I had just a little bit of a disconnect with this. And I always sort of, think to myself, when I'm reviewing movies and everything, a lot of people like to point to in certain movies, look at all that symbolism and like, look at how they did that. That was so awesome and everything. And I'm like, well, symbolism itself doesn't make a movie great. Just because you're happy that you were able to connect with that symbolism doesn't mean that it makes any sense for what the movie was doing or anything like that. And it had the same sort of issue here, just with like I said, like you said, it was like two different movies and everything. I just wish I could see one or the other, and I think they would both be great 1.5 to 2 hour movies on their own. But I overall like this a lot too. And I don't want to dissuade anybody from watching it by the little things that I just said here. There's just a little bit of a disconnect for me. So
good movie's a good movie.
Yeah. Okay, let's go on to spoilers.
No spoilers!
Kevin Spacey is Kaiser Soze.
Luke's father is actually Darth Vader. She's the sister and the daughter. They just
No. I'm reading the books.
So, okay, so what's really spoilery about this movie? I guess, I mean, you have Chadwick Boseman is the guy who plays the
Stormin' Norman.
Yeah, Stormin' Norman, who was their buddy and their leader. They went to go check out some CIA plane that's wrecked in the mountains.
Yeah, it was the people helping them against the Viet Cong, and they did not want to be paid in paper.
Right.
Yeah.
There's this case full of gold in the plane. They immediately get attacked. when they get into the plane, and then they're spread out as they try to get this gold back to wherever they think they're going to get it back to. But the Chadwick, the Storm and Norman character ends up getting shot while they're at the plane, and yeah, they have to. They know they can't bring it back with them. They don't have any means of doing that, and so they bury it, hoping to come back one day. So yeah, so then they come back. They're older, and the idea is they have a contact. What's her name? Was it Tien Lu?
Yes.
Yeah.
It was Tien.
Played by, according to the IMDb, Y Lan, the letter Y. I guess the first name must be very difficult to pronounce or something. But this is somebody that Clark Peters' character has had a relationship with. She's going to help them find somebody who's going to help them get the gold out, and that's Jean Reno. Who is playing, what is his name in this movie? Desroches. And Jean Reno is a perfect smarmy bad guy character.
Absolutely.
If you've ever seen him, and I mean, he's obviously been a good guy a few times, but Mission Impossible is immediately going to come to your head when
professional.
When you see him in here, but you know immediately that this guy is probably not to be trusted, and all of these guys are like, yeah, this guy can't be trusted as soon as they see him. But he's going to help them apparently get the gold out and everything. And they have a guide, but they don't want the guide to come with them in the woods. I don't know. I didn't understand. I was trying to figure out how in the world they knew where to go back, and I thought that the lack of a guide was really going to hurt them.
Yeah, I mean, my thinking was because they had said they were going to get the remains. Obviously, they didn't say they were going to get gold, and then so I guess they didn't want the guide with them because of that. And they did at one point. They had some kind of machine, like they had something with them, a handheld device that. Oh, and they had a metal detector.
Yeah, but
that was one thing I was kind of confused about how they knew exactly what location. I mean, I can assume they told the guide where the incident took place. And maybe that's
what it was. I know why they didn't take the guide in. It's just I just thought it was going to be something major that hurt them later on, that they couldn't trust anybody to help them get to this place. And it really wasn't, except for the fact that there are mines everywhere, and they really needed somebody who knew where mines were in this place. This is one of the things about the movie that I thought was the most contrived part of it. Was they run into this French team of minesweepers in a bar before they go to the jungle the next day. And lo and behold, those minesweepers are there when mines become a problem.
That scene was so good, though.
And
it was just one of those great moments where you got somebody yelling, and that was the Norm Lewis character, right? That was Eddie, and that was the moment where what the interesting thing about that moment was that, like, Eddie, when they find the gold. And it's been scattered, but they're finding it. And when they get it all together, they're talking about like what they're going to do with it. And Eddie is the one who actually says, well, when we talked about it with Norman, we were going to give all this back to the community or whatever. We were going to help because, obviously, help the, a Black Lives Matter movement or whatever, something like that. They were going to do that. And he's like, I think we should still do that. And then they're like, well, you're rich. You don't give a shit. And then you find out he's not rich. He's lost like everything. So even though he's lost everything, he's still saying like, this is what I want to do. So that's when things start kind of getting shady between them. And then I guess they go off for a little bit because I know they're walking with their backpacks. And then they have another argument. And then while he's like in the process of yelling, he steps on a mine and just blows up.
Yeah. And he is too. It's one of those type of things in movies where you see the chick yelling in Final Destination, and you see like all these different things that happen. That person's gonna die as soon as they start yelling like that.
It's very Deep Blue Sea, right? It's very Samuel Jackson getting eaten by the shark. It's that kind of moment. If for some reason you're listening to this and you haven't seen it, if you're listening to the spoiler section, and that's the turning point too, because Delroy Lindo's son, Jonathan Majors, steps on one, but it doesn't ignite. So he's standing there. Those minesweepers just show up. That's also very random. And
that's what I was saying.
I guess they heard the explosion. I guess
that's what I was saying, though. Like they meet them the night before, and then they just show up the next day.
Part of the jungle.
They're in that part of the jungle.
Yeah. And then so they hear the explosion, they show up, and then so they help him. They help Delroy. Although Delroy Lindo ends up coming up with the plan to get his son, to get Jonathan Majors off the mine, and they do that successfully. And then they kidnap the minesweepers.
Yeah, if there's anything that you kind of want to take from this movie is that Delroy Lindo's character Paul is irrevocably damaged by Vietnam. From the point that he goes in there, he sees his friend die, and he sees how America treats him after he's back and everything. He had and they mentioned something about Agent Orange and all this other stuff that's going on. He has PTSD. He's been sprayed with Agent Orange. He's got all these. He's not a fully sympathetic human being anymore.
No,
it has ruined his humanity, and there's a point where we see our first real glimpse of that is when he's on the boat, and the guy is trying to sell him whatever, like a chicken, I think, or something like that.
That sounds right. Yeah.
And he tries to sell this guy. He tries to sell Delroy Lindo a chicken, and he's really like doing the hard sell. And Delroy Lindo's like, just get that away from me. Get that away from me. Get that away from me. And then ends up calling the guy a racial slur and all this. And you're like, okay, this guy is, he's probably a little off. But like as they get into the jungle and they get the gold and everything, he's really starting to you start seeing the greed and the all the stuff that's happened to him really start to take hold of him.
Yeah, the gold fever. That's where this kind of turns into treasure of the Sierra Madre for sure.
Yeah,
and then like I guess with the landmines and stuff, maybe that's why I kept thinking of like Sorcerer and Wages of Fear. But
no, I thought about that too while I was watching this,
because it's that kind of tension, right? It's like you just never really know. Like it's a very explosive situation, literally and figuratively. And you never really know when the next thing's going to happen. And then there's also, because I think you're right though, because the Delroy Lindo character at first, like we can tell he's kind of an ass and stuff like that. But you in that scene, I think you find out how deep it goes. And then of course you find out do we want to talk about the twist with Helm?
We can.
So then you find out, he's the one that's really talking about Storm and Norman and keeps talking about it. And he's obviously was very affected by that. And then what you find out at the end is that he shot him. He didn't mean to, but it was just, they were attacked and he was firing and he killed them. He killed his friend.
Yeah. And, it's something that you don't actually see in movies very often where it seems like friendly fire, the way war movies are made a lot of times, friendly fire should be killing a lot more people. They seem to miss everybody in these things. In this one, it's
absolutely.
In this one, it's and I love the way he Spike Lee does this too. It's kind of like you're like, wait a minute, did he hit him? Did I don't know. I'm not sure if he hit him or not. And then you find out for sure that he hit him.
Because he sees his ghost, right? And he has kind of which he could just be delusional or whatever, but he gets a hug from him and he says, "I forgive you." And
well, no, like it was right after he got shot. Chadwick Boseman says, it's not your fault and everything.
Yeah.
Before he dies and everything.
Oh, that's right. That's what. Gotcha.
That ghost thing does happen as well. Delroy Lindo gets murdered like no one has ever been murdered before in this movie. Like he is just riddled with holes by the time this movie's
Yeah.
over.
Well, and that's another thing, right? Another thing they encounter is this Vietnamese people show up that want the
Mm-hmm.
gold from them, which you end up, of course, finding out they're working with Jean Reno.
Yes.
And that's how they know what's going on. Because you see them early on too. I think when they find the gold, you see them like spying on them or something, or maybe they haven't found the gold yet. But I know there's at one point where you see there's people watching them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not. I can't. It's been
I
a
can't
couple
remember that, but that sounds right to me.
Yeah, I mean it's real quick, and then you don't see them again until they show up, and they and then they end up having to get the minesweepers to work with them.
Yeah.
One of them gets killed.
Mm-hmm.
And then the two Paul Michael Glazer and I guess it's Melanie Thierry. I'm going to say Thierry.
It's Hauser, Paul Walter Hauser, and
Paul Walter Hauser.
Yeah, and I would say it's probably like it's either Melanie Thierry.
Yeah.
I think Thierry is right. Or you just call it Melanie. Melanie Laurent does the same thing. He has that little
exactly
accent aigu or whatever over the E. So,
and it was hard not to be reminded of her either. In was that Inglourious Bastards? I guess it was really hard not to be reminded of her because I mean they don't really look alike, but they're similar builds, and I don't know. And they're in
there was some certain things about her character that I thought the same thing. Like that also brings up the fact that Apocalypse Now shows up in this movie a couple of times, and like if you've ever seen the Redux version of Apocalypse Now or the director's cut, there's a whole section where where Martin Sheen and everybody runs into a bunch of French nationals, like living somewhere in a house, in the jungle somewhere, and that's something that I haven't done much research on, like the French involvement with the Vietnam War, but that apparently was a big thing, and because this character, this Hetty character that Melanie Thierry plays, she's there because of like her father or somebody like that was there at the time, and she's coming back to do some good, and apparently her dad didn't do any good or something like that when he was there.
Well, and then Delroy Lindo, his character Paul, when they first meet Jean Reno, he kind of gives them some shit about the French involvement, and and then Jean Reno's like, thanks for that, elementary justification of whatever, it was just kind of one of those like, who's got the bigger dick moments.
There's a scene towards the end. I like the gunfight at the end. I thought that was good. But like one thing about it, I was like, how in the world is Jean Reno not getting shot during this entire thing? Like he is out in the open and they're just missing. and I'm just like, he's just there, guys. You guys aren't holding guns that are like you would miss if you shot that many times in that way.
And I don't know if this was on purpose, and I just thought about this when you brought it up, but they do talk about Rambo at one point. Like they talk about those kind of movies and how they're not realistic. And I think one of the things they say is you've got that guy shooting everybody, but he never gets hit. So I don't know. I don't know if that was supposed to be a reference.
Could be.
But it's a little silly, but it is a really good gunfight. It is really interesting, and it's kind of one of those cool things too, where Spike Lee's Spike Lee in the movie, he puts in something about Rambo and stuff, but then their movie kind of turns into that a little bit towards the end, where they're having this big gun battle and everything. So stuff like that's always fun. But I like all that. They end up having to, like I said, bring the two of them in on the money too. So then they end up helping them, and then of course other people in the group start dying, and so it just kind of all goes to shit by the end.
There's some great Spike Lee flourishes in here where this is where you're watching a Spike Lee movie. I love when Delroy Lindo's by himself and he starts talking to the camera and everything, and he has these big speeches and everything. And Spike Lee movies always get incredibly engrossing when he gets into that mode where people are doing soliloquies essentially, and Delroy Lindo has a couple in here where he's just thrashing through the jungle and he starts talking to the camera and everything. Great stuff. I love like the sort of the ending of this where Otis goes back and sees and recognizes that he's got a daughter now. And and Spike Lee always has this sort of moment too, where he has the camera sort of on a track of some sort with the two characters going towards the camera. I don't even know how he does that effect, but I think the camera is sort of like attached to them in some way as they walk towards it. So it's got this kind of I don't know, there's an ethereal feel to it that I really love. And of course he does do all this tying together of his themes by the end of it and everything. I also like how whenever somebody mentions somebody from history, he does this thing that's really cool where he'll cut to a picture of the person that's being talked about. Like if it's Martin Luther King or who else is in this? Martin Luther King features prominently in this, but like, whenever he's talking about certain people from history, they show the picture of the person or they show video of the person and everything. And I think those are just really nice touches.
Absolutely. No, I mean, this is a Spike Lee movie through and through, but it is like, and you've mentioned this is both its like kind of strength and weakness, is that like the subject matter and the point, the soliloquies and the points he's making are just as profound, just as volatile as stuff he did in like Do the Right Thing. But then on top of that, it's also a big like action thriller.
yeah.
More in the vein. It's like Do the Right Thing mixed with Inside Man, basically. Like if you combine those two movies.
Yeah, it kind of is. Yeah, it kind of is. That's like I was saying. He's done Spike Lee's done a couple of war movies before, and I'm trying to remember if I don't think I saw the big one he made. What was that?
Oh God, what was that called? It's the one where they're searching for treasure too.
Are they?
Is that the one you're talking? Maybe we're talking about two different ones.
I actually don't know. I think it was in 2007, 2008, somewhere around there is when that movie came out. Miracle at St. Anna.
Yeah, that's the one I'm talking about. Yeah, they're searching for treasure in that. That's not a very good movie.
Oh, is it not? No. Yeah, this that was World War II. That he did that on. I don't know if he's done anything Vietnam related, but anyway, yeah. I don't know where we were going with that. So anyway, there are a lot of great flourishes, and I'll just say again, it's just the movie I really want to see. I want to see both of these that were both kind of these movies we're talking about separately. I just want to see a big action movie from one, and I want to see the cost of the war to African Americans in another movie. And again, I may have to watch it again to really appreciate all the mix of themes he's putting in here. But on a first glance, I was like, man, I like these ideas. I just wish they were in another movie.
No, I hear you. You just can't be pleased, man. I got you.
That's pretty much what it is. Everybody should understand that I can't like movies. I just can't.
But I think with this and Black Klansman, I mean, like I said, unfortunately, I haven't seen a ton of his more recent stuff. Like I didn't see. I know a lot of people like Chirac. I didn't see that. And we were talking about The Sweet Blood of Jesus. I don't know if people love that or not, but I haven't seen that. But I know this and Black Klansman are two pretty strong films back to back. So I hope I'm really, really excited to see what he does next. And I know we've mentioned Delroy Lindo, but God, Delroy Lindo is so good in this movie.
Yeah, I think if there's anything that you should come out of this movie, out of this review, we love us some Delroy Lindo in this movie. He is so good.
It's such a complex character too, and we've already talked about that a little bit. How you kind of keep finding out, they keep pulling back like layers, and you keep finding out new things about him. And there's the whole thing where Jonathan Majors plays his son, and Jonathan Majors is great in this. Everybody's great in this, really. I don't know that there's like a bad performance, but
no.
Jonathan Majors plays his son, and there's like 3 or 4 different moments with them where they keep going back and forth, and you can't quite figure out what their relationship is, like as far as who loves who. And because he even at one point says like, I just wish you weren't my son, basically, like, and he's like, and I hate to say it, but it's true. And then 30 minutes later, he's like, I love you, man. I'm glad you came. Actually, he's like, I don't like why you came. Cause he basically came to blackmail his dad.
Yeah.
Or he wanted to get some of the money, and he said he was going to tell the authorities if he didn't let him in.
Yeah.
On it, and so you can kind of get why Lindo's mad at him, but then you also realize they probably don't have a great relationship as it is, and I don't know, it just felt like a very realistic, like,
Well, yeah, and it's like you never know where you're at with him in that relationship. At times it looks like he genuinely loves his son, but when it comes down to it, he will sell all of that for the gold and everything else if he
because at the
wants
end
to.
of the movie, that's what he does. He calls his son a traitor.
Yeah,
and and then he just takes off on his own, and then obviously he gets captured by the Vietnamese that are working with Jean Reno, and then, like you said, they have him dig his own grave, and then they just fill him with I don't know how many bullet holes.
Yeah, it was like hundreds. What was what else? This is very minor, but I think Isaiah Whitlock is the only actor I know who has his kind of profile where he's not like super famous or anything, who has a catchphrase. And I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but in The Wire, he's very well known for having these prolonged shits.
I remember that now. Yes.
He does that in this movie, and he did it in The 25th Hour, another Spike Lee movie that's I really like.
Well from that, yeah.
And he's the only guy I know who has that kind of profile where he constantly gets to do that. It's not even a phrase, it's a catch delivery of a word.
It's like Chris Tucker saying "damn" and Friday, but it's shit, and it's better. It's better. It really. I don't know how he says it. He adds like there's like so many vowels in there. Like it's crazy.
Yeah.
What you're talking about.
They did this. They did that. It was really funny. Like when The Wire was playing on HBO, there was I guess they ran into a situation where they couldn't play the new episode that weekend for some reason. I guess they had not edited it, or I don't know what happened to it, but I mean, it would be available the next week, they promised. But like the whole promo for that was Isaiah Whitlock going shit, and and it's fantastic.
I really liked him in this movie too. He kind of brings like some levity, I think, to a few of the scenes, because he's definitely kind of the more laid back, I guess.
The last
Otis is the only one that survives, right?
I believe so. And I even had to rewind it to make sure of that, because he does get shot.
He does.
And when they were going through the whole thing where he goes back to meet his daughter and everything, I was like, is this him in like death? Is he like because the way that shot is all real ethereal like and everything. So I was like, oh, maybe he did die. Maybe he did, but I think he does end up surviving there.
Yeah, they felt like, and I also just found they've already made a GIF of or GIF, whatever, of the four of them dancing toward the camera. Do you remember that scene at the beginning when they go to the nightclub or whatever, or the bar?
Oh yeah.
I don't remember what the song is, but they're just walking towards the camera and like snapping and all that kind of stuff, and that's like already been made into like a meme. It's like such a great little moment too. Like I thought that was hilarious. I saw it on Twitter.
Yeah.
Somebody was like, I could watch this for hours.
Yeah.
Like Delroy Lindo's doing this thing with his hands where he's like going up and down, almost robot-esque. I don't know. It's funny. But this movie's got a lot of nice flourishes in it. I don't know. I was on board, definitely. This is definitely up there with like something like The Invisible Man for me. And not that there's been that many 2020 movies I've seen because of obviously everything going on.
Right.
But of the 35 or whatever I've seen, this is kind of in that discussion for me.
Yeah, for sure.
So
okay, what did you guys think? Go to SinCast presented by Cinemasins on Facebook. We're also on Cinemasins Twitter. We're also on Music Video Sins Twitter, SoundCloud, and Discord. If you wanted to get on Discord, you can go to our Reddit page and find the link on the right side of the page there, or you can go to Facebook and private message me, and I will give you a link there. Where can people find you, Jonathan?
You can find me on Twitter at SamLoomis13, and you can hear me just about every week on Behind the Sins with Danae Hughes and Aaron Dicer.
All right, that's going to do it for this mini-pod. It's Chris Atkinson and Jonathan Watkins. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening. Comment on our episodes on our SoundCloud page. Check us out on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and Reddit. And be sure to visit cinemasins.com.